Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. I'm your host Jordan, joined by my plucky co-host Dakota. Now we recently got news that Marvel and DC will be teaming up for two one-shots later this year. One is going to be called Marvel slash DC, one is going to be called DC slash Marvel. And we both grew up reading the classic Marvel versus DC, so we're wondering what might be coming in this, maybe a little bit of speculating, and some wishes for what we'd like to see. So, Dakota, when you first heard this idea, what were you thinking?
I was hoping for more of a continuing story, kind of like they did before with the Marvel versus DC, where I think that was that 4 or 6 issues, something like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
wanted to say six, but it was a
yeah,
couple for sure.
yeah. So I was hoping something like that, where even if it wasn't all connected, like just something a little bit more than just 2 issues, because it makes me
Mm-hmm.
think like I would expect this to be very similar to Batman and Spawn that came out, was that last year or the year before? um,
Yeah.
where it was, it was one issue. It was better than the first one,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still kind of like, oh, this would have been cool to see a little bit more of. Like, it was kind of a supersized issue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I just, it doesn't happen very often that you get these giant comic companies together. So when they come together, I
Mm-hmm.
want to see them really tell a story, or just like
Yeah.
give me more, even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
connected. But I guess that's just me wanting more, and then they can come back in 20 years again and do it again. If
Maybe
comics are
longer.
still
I
around in
think it's
20
like
years.
30 years, man. It was
Yeah.
96 or something.
How dare
Yeah,
you,
I
Jordan?
think.
I was born in
What?
95.
Oh, sorry not to hit you with that. Sorry, man. Um, yeah, so I do see that point of like, are they just going to cram a whole bunch of stuff into these two issues and you just
Hmm.
kind of got to blow through everything? I think that's a concern. Um, Part of me likes that it's Marvel DC and not like Marvel versus DC, DC
Hmm.
versus Marvel, because reflecting, I did a little bit of thinking back on the old one, and I do think there's fun things in it. I remember even as a kid, though, feeling like it was kind of just the novelty of this guy meets this guy. They fight for a
Hmm.
couple pages, and then you do that over and over again, which I do think you could do a little bit higher caliber of a story with the
Hmm.
concepts of these characters. I do agree with you, though. I think it's hard to be like, how do you fit that into two issues,
Yeah.
And it would be nice if it was like a limited series. I think that would be super cool. But I guess we'll have to kind of take what we can get.
All right.
Um, yeah, one thing I think about the original that so I guess my pitch would be the original like took a lot of inspiration and kind of was in Marvel continuity. It felt with like
Hmm.
what was going on. So if you remember, there's like Ben Riley as Spider-Man. I think Superboy was really popular from Death of Superman. You had Professor Hulk, and I think for me, I remember being kind of bummed out that those weren't like the definitive versions. Like a regular Hulk or a regular Spider-Man, which my pitch for these would be that they're not in like comic continuity.
Hmm.
Like you kind of set them in their own thing so they can do their own thing and kind of have the freedom to do whatever they like. How would you feel about something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, because I think, like, I almost imagine, like, if you try to keep it with current stuff, it's like each universe is kind of convoluted in their own way. So it's like, are you going to have Spider-Man going through his stuff that he's going through right now with his 10 stories? Is there going to be a Venom verse? Is all that stuff going to like bleed into this, where it's like, why don't you just take the characters? Because like, I doubt this is going to have any impact on the universes. Like, you're not going to be mentioning in the ongoing Spider-Man story, oh man, remember when Superman came and helped
Uh,
us fight Rhino? It's like,
right.
that's going to be separate. So just make them actually separate. Like, you don't need to pull it
Mm-hmm.
in. And but I could see it being like both Marvel and DC are going to use this as a commercial for their stories that they're already telling a little bit, to try to get you. Which
Mm.
I understand, that's like
Yeah.
part of the draw of like, a lot of people are going to want to read these. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a lot of eyes on it, you want those eyes to then carry over to other things you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like your idea of keeping it more separate. Remind me that I still
Mm-hmm.
love Batman, Spider-Man, all these characters, and then I'll go read those stories.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you could still have them be like a two-parter, depending on when they come out. You could have one be part of the story and the other part. So you at least could
Mhm.
get two issues of a story. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I'd like it to be more like justifying why you're doing it more than just because and it'll make money. Because I do think that was kind of like a lot of the motivation of the first one. It's like both Marvel, DC, I think comics in general were struggling at that time.
Mhm.
So it was like, hey, maybe we can come together, get people to boost sales, and I think it worked. Um, which I think you got to do that part of it too. But I hope there's more thought into like why should we cross these over, or like a little bit more.
See,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
even think so. I don't think you need it. It's
Really?
it's Spider-Man teaming up with Batman. I don't need to know more. I just give me a fun story. Like I think that's where our stories differ. Where like I really
Right.
don't care how good this Marvel versus DC is, as long as it's cool and fun. That's all I need to know. It doesn't need to make any sense to me. Like I can use my imagination of like, oh, they just got together and like now I get a cool story with these characters that never get to meet, and it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need more than that, Jordan. I don't.
I think you could do both though. I think you could satisfy both me and you
Mm,
with the right approach to the story. I do.
yeah,
But I get that.
I think you're right.
I feel
Maybe.
like they'll just settle probably for like, hey, this guy team here, they team up, this fight, this is cool, and like,
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess for me, I'd like it to have a little bit more of an impression of like, this is more than just something like a flash in the pan. Like you picked it up, read it,
Sure.
oh, interesting, and then you move on and forget. To be like, oh, that was actually like well thought out, and maybe it sets the foundation for more moving forward. But
Yeah,
uh,
I think they probably could do that. I think kind of along my lines of like it's got to be fun and like cool. I think as long as it's not, because I think it could feel very pandery to just be like, oh, here's your story, you nerds. This is what you want. This is what you're gonna do. Like we're gonna do this to
right,
make you give us your money type of thing. It's like then that's not so very fun. But like I said, I think
mm-hmm,
the Spawn and Batman was pretty good, and I liked that I think Jim Lee was doing the art on that, wasn't he? And then
maybe I'd have
I
to
think,
look.
yeah. Anyway, it just like it still was like a very cool, kind of
Mm-hmm,
darker. I think I would be okay if we just totally skipped the whole like versus part, because like Spawn and Batman fight for a little bit, and it's like, oh wait, we're on the same team, and it's like that feels very like
right,
done and everything. So it's like when Spider-Man and Batman meet, it's like, oh, we're both chasing the
mm-hmm,
Joker and Green Goblin. Like, okay, let's go get them. It's
right,
not like, oh, I'm
yeah,
gonna go get them. No, I'm gonna go get them, and then oh, maybe we should team up
yeah,
instead of this. It's like, okay, I get just go
right.
get them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I think I like that they're dropping that whole they're gonna battle because it's like we don't probably need that.
Hmm.
I think what would be interesting is I don't think the villains were explored as much in the original Marvel versus DC. I think they had
Hmm.
roles, but it was more the heroes fighting. So
Yeah.
I think the potential of like villains in some sense in the Marvel DC crossover would be interesting to see more of.
Hmm. I think
Even
they
like you said,
only.
like a Green Goblin, Joker. I know they had those. Yeah,
I was just gonna say I can't remember whether that was before or after Marvel versus DC, where they had those other crossovers where, like, the Joker wouldn't team up with a Red Skull and stuff like that.
yeah. I think before they'd had like almost one shots of like there was a
Hmm.
Batman, Captain America. I think there was a Batman, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
I think there's a way to make it interesting, and I'm curious who's going to be the creative team on it. If it's like they're getting a bunch of writers, if it's they're picking out writers, if it's like I don't know.
I mean, I don't know who the A-listers
I'm
are
not sure how. Yeah,
in like Marvel right now, but I would think like who's doing Ultimate Spider-Man.
that's Jonathan Hickman.
So I'd get
He's kind of
Jonathan
the
Hickman
guy.
and Jim
Yeah,
Lee on that
he's
book.
been. Mm.
Just
Oh, okay.
just hit him hard with the
And Jim Lee has
A-listers.
done both Marvel and DC, so
I mean,
get
isn't he like
his art
one of the head
style of like his
honchos at
Batman
DC?
Superman stuff with his X-Men. Yeah, yeah. Well, he does I think more of a like higher level, yeah, like management thing, but of
Hmm.
course, yeah, his art, he's done tons of art, so that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be cool to be seeing different creators doing different styles, like if you had man, if you had if he was still with us, Tim Sale doing like a little vignette on like the Joker and Green Goblin or something. Like
Yeah.
things like that would be kind of. I'd be okay with that being the fun part of it if it's like you're getting different creators to be like, this is kind of a cool take on this character, or like this is like how we would pull this off. Or I think you could make it pretty creative. I just hope it's not like just generic, I guess,
Yeah.
for me.
I
And
feel like
maybe
you
I'm
could.
asking too much because the novelty is just
Yeah. You could totally like blow this up and make it like almost sports like okay, I'll go like even crazier first. Like, okay, imagine Disney's
okay.
gonna buy DC. They're not just gonna come out and say that they're doing that. They're gonna make a Marvel versus DC comic, and then they put out there whoever wins in the storyline, like they now have the other company, and then Marvel wins, and then Marvel gets DC. We could do a whole episode on like the what if that would happen because I still want those companies to be separate. But going back to my more sports like idea is I think it would be fun to have like
Yes.
you pick your creative teams, like you've got your Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, you've got your whatever we said, Jonathan Hickman and Jim Lee, and you say like, all right, here's the 10
right.
teams. We're gonna have draft style. You get to pick the characters that you're gonna be doing. You can't like have like not everybody can be just like Spiderman versus somebody. It's like you gotta go through the list, pick out your characters, because then you're gonna have some of those folks that are gonna be like, oh, like I want to go like off the beaten path. We're gonna pick whoever it is, like Howard the Duck teaming up with Lobo or something, So
Right.
I think that would be kind of more fun because there's
I think that'd be
longer
fun.
things. You can make that like more of the spectacle of like make it a live event where they come up and they're like, oh, this is the books we're gonna pick, and
Right.
so that would probably
that's
take
cool.
a little bit
Yeah,
longer
I think
time.
that would be fun because, well, it would play with the fact of like that the creators are having fun with the idea too. Like, oh,
Right.
it'd be cool for me to take a crack at Batman, or like, oh, I've always wanted to write the Hulk. So I think that would be fun. And the old one had that component of, I know there were like 6 fights decided by the creators, and they let readers vote for the other 6, like the outcomes. So I think doing that would kind of be a way to do something like that, to like you're bringing the fans in on the creation of it. It's
Right.
like, we know you love these characters, we love them too. Let's try to create something cool. And I mean, what would be the fun part? You could have the picks. Almost that could be the voting element. Like, who would you like to see Jonathan Hickman write for Batman or for DC, or like things like that would be, I think, kind of fun, because then it'd be like a challenge. Like, all right, what would I do with Etrigan if I had to put him in a story or something? So yeah, that to me I think would be more long term. But hopefully maybe if this like goes well, they'd be like, hey, let's do more,
Right.
Limited, like a 3-issue team up or whatever. I think eventually people would love. I know. How would you feel if they did any more amalgam stuff?
Oh, I would love it. I would be more excited about
You were
amalgam
a
stuff
big,
than I would be with just Marvel DC stuff. Because if we could bring back, and
right.
I mean, honestly, I don't understand why they can't come to some sort of agreement to just have an ongoing amalgam series. Like, I don't know that you could pull off multiple. Maybe you could, and maybe that's something they should look at. But there's got to be some sort of agreement that they could come to where they do those characters, and Marvel gets this cut, DC gets this cut, and that's just more money for them. So why do they not want more money, Jordan?
Yeah, I don't know. They're not listening to us. So yeah, you could have it like an ongoing series where you continue to follow those characters and then also make newer versions. Or yeah, I think that would be a fun continued universe to see.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hard if you're like everyone has their own title, but if you were like, here's the
Right.
main series, and like whatever this version of Justice League Avengers teamed up are and their adventures and where they go, I think that would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, at least doing the
Just split the profits.
Yeah, give Dark Claw a series and give probably, what was it, Super Soldier, like those two, and then maybe pick a team. I don't think the X-Men team was all that cool because it was like the Metal Men and X-Men together, but maybe like the JLX would be a cool team.
Yeah, so possibilities. those are some of our thoughts on the upcoming Marvel DC Marvel one-shots. Let us know in the comments what you think, what you'd like to see out of those issues if you'll be picking them up. Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay strong. You know, I'm thinking we're going to need an Aunt May vignette in Aunt May and Alfred in
Yeah, there you
this
go.
one shot. They're the through line between. It starts with them like meeting, and then it ends with them, and they have to say goodbye or something.